Welcome to the Gilhousen podcast, produced in partnership with Ed Circuit Media, an organization focused entirely on the K-12 EdTech industry and empowering the voices that can provide guidance and expertise in facilitating the appropriate usage of digital technology in education. Ed Circuit elevates the voices of today's innovative thought leaders and ed experts. Gilhousen represents over 13 million students in districts and educational institutions nationwide and continues to grow as a powerful and influential voice in K-12 education. This high-profile series showcases industry thought leaders and executives who provide timely market insights and critical guidance on various educational technology strategies.
All right, welcome to the Gilhousen podcast series. My name is Jeff Angle, and on behalf of Gilhousen and today's sponsor, Infosys, we're excited to bring you part 3 of a 3-part series on K-12 education and cybersecurity. Joining me today are Mayank Agarwal and Scott Gilhousen. Mayank has been associated with Infosys for more than 17 years. In his current role, Mayank is the head of cybersecurity business in North America. He's responsible for customer engagement, sales, and analyst engagement, go-to-market strategies with tech partners and startups in North America. Mayank is proficient in managing strategic relationships with CIOs, CISOs, head of cloud, and infrastructure. Mayank is an accomplished and astute professional with a perfect mix of sales acumen and technology expertise. Welcome to the podcast, Mayank.
Thanks for having me here, Jeff. Thank you.
And also joining us is Scott Gilhousen. Scott is the Chief Information Technology Officer for the Houston Independent School District, where he leads all aspects of information technology, data and analytics, and information security. His overarching mission is to ensure equitable access to advanced learning technologies, modernize the existing application software portfolio, and bolster cybersecurity and data privacy to safeguard the interest of students, teachers, and employees across the organization. Scott has over 2 decades of experience in strategic and operational leadership roles, brings a wealth of expertise to his current position as the CITO. And prior to assuming this role, he served as the Director of IT Infrastructure Engineering and Operations at Houston ISD, where he led the delivery, operation, and maintenance of technology infrastructure, telecommunications, and computing services that were aligned with the organization's educational and business programs. Throughout his career, Mr. Gilhousen has been involved in the educational community and IT professional organizations such as the Council of Great City Schools, Center for Digital Education, Consortium for School Networking, Texas Education Technology Leaders, and Gartner. Scott received his Bachelor's of Science in Management of Information Systems from the University of Houston, Clear Lake. Welcome to the podcast, Scott.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm glad to be here.
So let's kick off today's discussion by identifying some challenges in K-12 schools. And Scott, I'll direct this first question to you. So from your vantage point of running a very, very large district, substantial technology infrastructure, what are the current challenges for K-12 schools in the areas of IT and cybersecurity?
I can speak on behalf of here at Houston ISD, just some of the challenges that we face on a day-to-day basis. One of them, I think most of the industry here in K-12 is pretty knowledgeable about the increased number of threats targeting education. And so we are continuing to be attacked both internally and externally within the environment through phishing scams, ransomware attacks, and other type of malware in the environment. In addition to that, we're faced with limited budgets in K-12. And so outside of having to support the core infrastructure, application service delivery, computing devices, cybersecurity is not necessarily an area that there's a lot of investment in. That's one of the areas that we're looking to bring some more investment in the areas. The other part is the balancing security and accessibility in the environment. So we know that as we start to tighten the controls within the environment, we may be impacting some instructional applications or instructional content delivery that happens for most educators and students in our environment. Another area that's rising for us is being able to protect our student employee data. So as a district, we've got to comply with FERPA and COPA regulations to protect that personal information of our students. And it can be somewhat challenging given the large size of our district, because we're not only looking for our current student population or our existing employee population, but we have literally decades of student records or student information or employee information within the district. So overall, there are quite a bit of challenges that we're faced. And one more I'll just kind of refer back to is the human talent aspect of it. So with IT being a pretty competitive environment today in the industry, one of the forums that I had the privilege to be a part of was a Gartner CIO forum. And it was very interesting to see roughly about 1,500 CIOs out there looking at what their talent pool was. And most of their vacancies were sitting at a 6 to 9 month kind of window before they're filled. So sometimes just having the lack of human talent or expertise in the environment tends to be a challenge for us.
Yeah, the talent component always that comes up quite frequently. Some of the statistics I've seen in terms of the number of roles that are open that are looking to be filled right now, just within the U.S., is over 500,000 in that cybersecurity space. Mayank, anything you would like to add to that?
The 4 points that were talked about, I think they were pretty prevalent that we have seen across the board as well. Attacks obviously have become a lot more complicated. The budgets are constrained, talent is a challenge, as well as privacy is a big issue as well. I think just 2 additional points which I like to kind of add to this particular mix is one, which is around the advent of, say, things like the OT technology, which has been there, and how attackers are leveraging not just the IT landscape, but also OT systems. And we know there are lots and lots of OT devices which are there in any K-12 schools. So it could be attendance systems, it could be small dispensers, and so on and so forth. So OT devices and the kind of challenges that they bring in, that's interesting pieces which are there. And the second piece that we have seen out here is, while say some of the school districts are larger, they have manpower budgets which are there. We also work with some of the school districts which are much smaller in nature, which are there, or maybe a central organization that supports maybe 100 odd schools, and each of these schools are very, very small schools in remote locations. So how do we support those kind of schools? And that's where it's a very different paradigm, where at a overall level, we have to set up certain basic cybersecurity controls and probably permeate them to all the organizations which are there, so that everyone gets protected and they are part of the larger ecosystem, and they're not just trying to solve this complex cybersecurity problem only by themselves.
That's a great point. That we quite frequently talk about large districts and the challenges that they have, but is that as you start moving out into adjacent schools, into the rural areas, how do they support that? And they have the same challenges.
Do you know Infosys CyberNext can defend you against lethal cyber attacks and keep you hyper-connected at the same time? Our platform provides a comprehensive cybersecurity solution to enterprises that otherwise need to invest in dozens of security technologies to attain swift security maturity. This is provided by highly skilled security analysts in our specialized, globally distributed network of Cyber Defense Center. For more information, please visit www.infosys.com or write to mitrankurm@infosys.com.
Scott, there are several trends that are unique to K-12. You mentioned some of them: protecting the PII information of students, of teachers, of staff. You've got content moderation, but at the same time, you have to provide this technology IT infrastructure to educators. What are some of the trends that you're seeing in this area?
I can speak on behalf of our district. One of the ones that we're really focusing on is around data privacy. within our own district. And it's not necessarily something that IT is taking on, but it's a collaborative group of our academics or research group, as well as IT. So with the increased focus around multiple vendors that are requesting data out of our systems, whether that's PII or non-PII information, we need to have better policies in place and procedures in order to be able to access the data. And we've got good board policies that are in place to help protect things around FERPA, HIPAA, COPA regulations that are there. So we're putting an emphasis on data privacy. Another area for us is around the digital citizenship. So we're really trying to focus on working with our teachers and our students to really implement and operate our digital citizenship to be able to teach our students and teachers about the responsibility of online behavior, anything that may be inappropriate for content sharing, respecting other people's privacy. We're also implementing tighter content filtering and moderation controls within our environment through some of our providers that we have today. So we're trying to make sure that those students aren't exposed to the content, that whether they're on the network or off the network. In addition to some of those tools, using some of the artificial intelligence to be able to start looking at information that may be sitting local on that device, that may, move into things like bullying or harmful behavior to the self, or any other acts that could be deemed. That gives us a little bit more visibility into that. Cybersecurity awareness training is a focus for us as well, and it's not one of those things that we're looking to do one time a year, but we're looking to do repetitive video sessions, email articles, as well as testing for phishing campaigns for our staff and our teachers and our employees inside the district. And then another trend that we are starting to see that we have not necessarily embarked on ourselves is really in that artificial and machine learning environments. So being able to use that in a better manner to improve our cybersecurity defenses, being able to respond to threats in a much quicker and timely manner, so that we're focusing on the threats that we need to focus on, and then also ensuring that we're able to continue to provide a learning environment for our students.
That's great. And Mike, can you share some trends that you were seeing at Houston ISD?
Yeah, in fact, I was telling this earlier to Scott. I live in the Houston Metroplex area. So my daughters, they actually went to HISD, and thank you, Scott, and rest of the HISD staff. It's been a great pleasure being a parent where the kids are going to HISD and the kind of work that is being done out there. Some of the things Scott kind of alluded to earlier, and if I look at it from three perspectives, one as a parent, second as a student, and third as the function that the IT team has to provide. As a parent, it's really heartening to see one, that the kids have access to internet while they are in the school premises, and obviously the content is getting governed, moderated, which is there. So that is extremely good thing, and that's where Scott talked about the fact that we are using AI, machine learning to really filter the content, not just from the content requirements, which is looking at the offensive content versus others, but also providing an inclusive environment, which is there. Second important dimension is as a parent, when I really look at it, things as a parent, we have to interact a lot with the school districts. So things like putting, amounts in the lunch kits which are there, or interacting with the teachers, looking at the course content. So there is a lot of interaction that happens with the school district systems which are there. And that's where taking care of the privacy of the information which is there, making sure the right controls are put in place when we are accessing this information. So all of that is a very important dimension, which is storing the data in transit, making sure the data is encrypted while in transit, at rest, right amount of policies which are there, and nobody is snooping in when these kind of sessions are established. And lastly, as educators and and as the largest school district, one of the things that we have seen is a lot of school districts, they have systems which have been little antiquated. Scott talked about the lack of budgets as a big area of concern, and that's where if your systems are old, antiquated, they are more susceptible to attacks because they could be having vulnerabilities which can get exploited by attackers. And right now, we are seeing a very big trend where attackers are coming after school districts. So I think Scott and his team are doing a fabulous job in protecting the HISD IT environment. Thank you, Scott, for that.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I want to emphasize too, like we always talk about encryption with data in transit, but from a zero trust aspect, not a lot of people are focusing at that data when it's at rest. So great point there. So Mike, multi-cloud adoption is becoming the new normal. And for those of you out there, multi-cloud is using more than one cloud service provider. How can the K-12 sector secure itself while opting for this multi-cloud strategy?
Jeff, I like to define multi-cloud in a little bit of a broader context as well, because one, obviously there are multiple hyperscalers, which essentially means we could be leveraging AWS, Azure, or Google, or Oracle Cloud, or even IBM Cloud at the same time. Second important dimension to it could be the fact that maybe it's a single cloud, but then we are leveraging multiple SaaS platforms which are there. And when you leverage multiple SaaS platforms, then you are interacting with multiple clouds which are there. So there are three important dimensions which we have to focus on when we have to protect a multiple cloud environment. First and foremost, it is what we call as the cultural aspect, where a lot of times when we are moving to cloud, just the whole dimension of protecting the environment, everyone thinks it's the cloud providers or the SaaS providers' responsibility. And that's where there is a lot of education that needs to go in with the application teams more so, where we have to educate them and say that the security of the environment, it becomes a shared responsibility. And that what it means is there are things that have to be done by the cloud provider and the SaaS provider, but there are things that the IT teams or the applications or the infrastructure or the security teams, they have to do. So that's the whole dimension of secure by design that comes into play. Second part to it is all about putting the right native controls which are there, be it the SaaS product or the hyperscaler that comes into play. So like the way we protect the on-prem environment, similarly, all the, controls along the 7 layers of OSI, they have to be put into place from an access, a network perspective, a data protection. So all of those have to be put into place, which is there. Third important dimension to it is more around governance and making sure the controls are tested on an ongoing basis, which is there. Cloud, for example, the most important pieces about cloud are one, it's about flexibility. Second, it's about speed and agility. And third is something where cloud, we know it is ephemeral in nature because of the fact that certain, requirements would be there today. And maybe we just spin up a container instance, it's not there tomorrow. So how do we really do a real-time, governance, which is there? So that's the three important things, if I were to kind of summarize. First is more about the cultural aspects, which is embedding secure by design. Second, it's implementing the native control and aligning to the controls which are there on on-prem environment. And third is doing governance, which is more a real-time governance, checking inline, policies which are there and doing it on an ongoing basis. So those were the three dimensions that we have to cover.
That's great. Thank you. Scott, question for you. So we've got, we're seeing this emergence of security platforms in the marketplace. What do you see their role playing within your district?
So within our district, I would say that we've got a different or a different grouping or plethora of different security tools within our environment. And one of the things that we're pressing for is tighter integration into the different ecosystems that are there. So whether they're around threat and response, whether they're around content filtering, around data protection, could be elements of what we would be looking to integrate in our environment. There has to be some sort of correlation that takes place. And we're spending quite a bit of time just logging into multiple systems, multiple dashboards, multiple tools to be able to correlate information when we find a threat within the environment. So threat detection response systems so that we can better respond to phishing scams and that we can respond to potential ransomware attacks, malware attacks, or any threats that are coming in the environment is something that we definitely need. We talked a little bit about the content filtering or about being able to detect threats both off the network and on the network. Looking for security platforms that are wrapped around data protection so that we can understand what data is sitting there, as Mike talked about, data at rest, data encrypted, data in motion, data in transit. Those are pieces that we need to look at. We also need a better integrated user management and access control within the environment, knowing where our users are coming from as we provision them and provision them into multiple applications that are out there. In addition to that, we use third-party risk monitoring services. So we look at all our third parties out there that have the highest criticality of risk in our environment. So it's a little over 100 different vendors from our financial, HR system, student information system, our benefits system, to be able to look and see how their posture is in the industry as well. So not only just trusting what we're doing in the environment and putting in tighter controls, but also understanding where their threats are in the environment and what's been public out there that we posted and what they're doing to address that. So for us, it's just looking for tighter integration into the security tools that we already have and to give us a little bit more visibility or better visibility and then be able to respond to those threats in a timely manner.
That's excellent. Mike, anything you would like to add on that topic?
So Scott touched about this integrated threat intel. I think that's a very important part that we have seen in a lot of school districts because today, if we look at threat actors, each of these threat actors have a very important or very distinct way of working. And what we call as the attribution for a threat actor. And these threat actors, they work like specialized industries. So there are threat actors which focus on K12 as a school, K12 school districts which are there. There are threat actors which focus on healthcare industry. So that's a very, very important piece that we have to look at. And we have to think from their perspectives and then come back and defend our systems which are there. I think that's a trend that I'm seeing, that it's this whole thing is getting so much specialized. And that's where integrated monitoring, threat intel, threat hunting, and vulnerability management, that becomes a key.
COSIN is the premier membership organization designed to meet the needs of K-12 education technology leaders. Their resources support the entire IT infrastructure of the school system. COSIN offers members access to their thought leaders across the country and the ability to actively participate in local COSIN chapters. Join the network today by visiting cosin.org and become another influential voice in K-12 education.
That's great. And actually, to build off of that one, next question I have for you is, with the advent of COVID and having to take all those devices outside of the ring fence and students logging in through their own networks, be it a, unsecured VPN or unsecured network. How do you see challenges like BYOD? We talked a little bit about OT devices. How do you see those challenges impacting K-12?
Yeah, I think that's a very important piece for BYOD, especially when we look at high schools or maybe even middle schools where kids are carrying their own devices to the schools. It's a very, very important thing because these devices are BYOD devices. They are based in a school district. They connect with the school district. They are physically in the location which are there. And they may not be as secure as the devices which are provided by the school district. So how do we ensure that maybe if some of these devices, they themselves could be infected with malwares, could be infected with viruses, they don't come and they don't infect the larger school systems. And that's where the zero trust based approach that has been implemented by most of the school districts, it kind of helps quite a lot. Where one, obviously, it's the secure connection part to it. And earlier, the whole paradigm of connecting to a network was there. And that's where what has happened is now with the whole advent of zero trust, rather than connecting to a network, what we are talking about is connecting to an application, so that you directly connect to an application and you are not connected to the network. It's like when I get into a school district, at the front desk, I get, escorted into the classroom where I have to go, and then I come out. I don't have a permission to go in any other place within the school which are there, and that's the whole concept that that schools are kind of working on, and that also enables advanced protection capabilities like data protection, capabilities, content filtering, and so on and so forth. The second point, just that you talked about, was around OT. I think this is still a pretty nascent space in most of the school districts. And the first and foremost, the most important thing which is out there is just to go out and discover the OT systems which are there. And it does take some amount of effort because of the fact that, a lot of times OT systems are not within even the purview of the IT team. So just starting with a program where we can discover the OT assets, that's a great beginning.
That's great insight. And Scott, from your standpoint, and we kind of touched on it with the BYOD devices or BYOD, and Mayank, you brought up the fact that you could have middle schoolers, you could have elementary students bringing in those devices. And we know social engineering is just constantly evolving. So Scott, question for you, how important is it in getting that cybersecurity awareness into students to help mitigate risk from those devices being brought in, or those students who may access devices within the district and going to places that you may not want them to go?
My belief is that cybersecurity awareness education in K-12 is critical. By providing the students and with this knowledge and skills to be able to protect themselves and their personal information from cyber threats. They're not necessarily thinking about this at the age of 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, yet alone 12 or 16, 17-year-olds that are thinking of this. So one of the things that I want to be able to reiterate is that not only is it not a K-12 problem, but it's more of a humanity issue when it comes to cybersecurity, because when they start to grow up and start applying for credit cards or credit checks, this will be information that could have potentially been used or been leaked or disseminated out there on the dark web. So being able to protect our students from cyber security threats, this is about teaching them online safety from our standpoint. It's also protecting them from those cyber threats of identity theft, cyberbullying, any online predators that may be out there lurking. We saw that during the pandemic when we opened up the Teams environment. That was kind of our first exposure into possibly outside people looking into our environment. Second area I would say is around the digital citizenship that I talked about a little bit earlier. So that's really helping those students develop the skills and the knowledge to become responsible students out there on the web, and also the importance of protecting their privacy. Another part in that education aspect, and we've got a couple scenarios that we've done on the application side, but we're looking to develop our students on the cybersecurity or the security side, information security side, is giving them the chance to become employable right after they graduate from high school or college. So being able to provide them with the skills, to become the part of that forensic or cybersecurity staff that enters that workforce. And then the other part is just making sure that we're meeting the compliance of COPA, CIPA, and any FERPA requirements that maybe we may have to ensure that we have compliance within our own environment.
Yeah, I see that a lot these days with schools starting to bring in more training around cybersecurity and those different areas to build up the students' knowledge, skills, and abilities to make them employable, but also as a way to help educate them around the risks that are out there in that environment. Well, gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for your time, consideration, and insight today. I think it was a great conversation. And once again, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Infosys, for supporting this series on K-12 education and cybersecurity. And we look forward to having future conversations down the road. Thank you, gentlemen.
On behalf of the leadership team at Gilhousen, thank you for listening to this episode of the Gilhousen Podcast. To access other podcasts in this series, visit gilhousen.org or edcircuit.com for a complete lineup of engaging technology topics. EdCircuit empowers the voices of education with hundreds of trusted contributors, changemakers, and industry-leading education innovators.